Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Quirky Inspirations. Today, I have the absolute pleasure of speaking to a gentleman by the name of Ken Attard. Ken is presently in Malta. Now, for those of you who don't know, that's an island in the Mediterranean. One of the bigger ones, but not as big as Cyprus. I will Ken explain who he is, because once I could wax lyrical about him, but it sounds better coming from him. He knows himself better than I do. Ken, tell us who you are and a bit about you.
Who I am? Wow, what a big question to start off with. Who I am? It's one of those, metaphysical questions. Who am I?
Existential. Why are you here?
I was actually in a retreat once, and they asked me that. They were asking that question. Who are you? Who are you? And it just over and over and over until there's frustration coming in. Who am I? So the point where I said, I am Iron Man.
Love it.
Who am I? So, Ken, my name's Ken Attard. I am Canadian born. So you may hear a tinge of a Canadian accent here, although I have been in Malta now for the past 43 years. My parents are both Maltese, so they had emigrated and decided to come back. I have been here ever since, which to me is a sign that I really do enjoy it here. I'm an entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneur for 20 years plus. I'm a father to a 30-year-old daughter. I am also I'm a mindset consultant. I love to help frustrated entrepreneurs to adapt and pivot their business mindset, especially, and to move them towards having that time freedom, and all that freedom that most entrepreneurs start their journey on, and tend to end up going down this rabbit hole sometimes where they wonder, where is this freedom? I'm someone who has a firm belief in my top three values for me are authenticity, joy, and freedom. Those three are really, really important for me. Joy, almost the top one. So anytime I'm considering making decisions in my life, I like to say, okay, is this going to bring me joy and joy to the people around me? And making sure that it's not compromising my freedom without a doubt. And I love authenticity in the sense I've learned over the years that it's so much easier just to be myself and not have to have those facades up that so many people live by, which is a very, very heavy weight to carry around all the time. So these are some of the essential things in my life. Like I said, I'm an entrepreneur. I've been delving into personal development for 20 years plus in one way or another, starting out, I think so many really and truly, is that I got involved in network marketing. Or multi-level marketing. And that's where I got introduced to speakers and books and personal development. And I was blown away. I was blown away when I started to hear this. And because of the nature of that business, I was finding myself getting in front of a number of people on a regular basis. And I felt comfortable. I enjoyed it. And I was keen to, I knew it was something that I inherently could do really well. Yeah. And I was just keen to learn more, and I've continued to do that over the 20 years plus of just delving further and further into personal development. And now I'm at the point where, like I said, I'm helping entrepreneurs to be able to really move forward with their life in a way they truly want to. So that's sort of it in a nutshell.
Cool. I mean, I don't know whether you find this or not, but my experience has been that almost mindset and personal development stuff came out of the multi-level marketing machine. If you think back to people like Jim Rohn, who was one of the early pioneers.
Oh yeah.
He was he Amway?
I believe so. I believe so.
Herbalife, yeah. But certainly, I mean, the big names, the early names, I should say, the early names, not necessarily the big names. Because the likes of Les Brown didn't do that sort of thing. However, he came out of he followed Zig Ziglar, I believe.
Yes, I believe so. And you have the likes of So the likes of Tony Robbins was actually helping Jim Rohn at the
yes.
time. So
Yeah.
with events and stuff like that. And then, so yeah, without a doubt, multi-level, if there's one thing that's I found absolutely beneficial from that, is that it does introduce individuals to personal development. And those individuals are all, which is really amazing, when I look back, all those individuals have that potential and want to become entrepreneurs. They want to have their own business, be their own boss. All of these, these sentences we've heard and these statements we've heard. Yet many of them still do not have that entrepreneurial mindset.
Yeah,
did not have that strong belief in themselves yet. And so, for me, it was amazing. And I actually came to the point where I said to myself, when I started learning, was like, how come they're not teaching us this stuff in school? And that's what blew me away.
I think I've got an answer for that. You see, the school system was set up to produce nice little workers.
Yes.
And
Indeed.
if we teach them things like this, they may not want to be workers. They may want to be entrepreneurs and be their own bosses. And that's going to mess up the status quo.
That's right. The thing, though, is as a we're at school, and as a 5-year-old, as a 10-year-old, whatever, you just, unless someone has pointed that out, you've had parents who had the awareness to point that out, which I think more and more today that is there. Mm-hmm. Yet, I mean, there's still a ways to go. Yet, if no one's pointed that out for you, you're going through the system. Like, I remember a point in time in my life when I thought that, I had to get a good education, that I had, for me to be able to get a good job. For me, I remember all of that. And this just, personal development just opened so many new doors, and just, it was really just a complete mind shift that I said, oh, so I actually have some control here. Somewhat.
Shh. Somebody may be listening.
I know.
So what did you do? You were employed to start with.
Oh, so when I was employed to start with, some amazing stories there. So way back, so we're talking 1982, when I was just finishing what we would call here a sixth form, which I think is sort of like the equivalent of like college. But at that time, there was actually a system here in Malta where we had a student worker scheme. So in the sense that during the summer months, so we had these 2 years at college or sixth form, where during the summer months, we were given jobs. We were given jobs to go to, and we were paid a very minimal amount for those jobs as student workers.
Yes.
Yeah. And how is this really tied in with what we're talking about today? And and I look back and I go, oh my God, talk about learning how to adapt and pivot and shift. So I had made the transition, obviously, from Canada to Malta when I was 14. So that was enough of a shift on its own, in the sense of certain culture differences. Although, I mean, I used to come on regular holidays, so I knew what it was like. But at 14, I thought I was coming on a perpetual holiday. Not the case. I was like, this is going to be really good, right? And schooling was actually one of the biggest challenges and differences. So I went from, let's say, an above average student in Canada to an average student here. And I was thrown in, I was started to learn things like, they taught Italian here. I had no idea of Italian. They taught French here. Okay, I had some idea of French being in Canada. Yet they teach it in a different way here. It's very grammatical here, whereas in Canada we would learn conversational
stuff. Yeah.
So I came here. All of a sudden, people are conjugating verbs left, right, and center. And I'm like, oh my God, like. And I went from a co-ed school to an all-boys school. I went from going to school in a jeans and t-shirt or whatever I wanted to wear to having to wear a uniform. I was going to school in a brown uniform with a polka dot tie. I was just like,
did you have to wear a cap?
And I'm 14. No, I did not have to wear a cap. No. And like I said, it's an all-boys school, and I'm 14. I mean, the hormones are running. And I'm like, where did the girls go? Like, Thankfully. So again, learning how to build rapport and all that, and also learning a new language. So everyone speaks English. Don't get me wrong, everyone speaks English. Yet I had to learn Maltese. I didn't know Maltese. Although my parents were both Maltese, they had made it a point while I was in Canada to make sure that my English was strong and not be, and again, at a different time, in the 60s and early 70s, there, not to have that, let's say that discrimination, if you like to say, like he's Canadian. But anyways, so learning all, and, adapting, and I managed to, fortunately, I'm pretty good at sports in general, so I could get on the football team, soccer, for those who are listening in the States. Make that the station, right? And it's funny though, I'm mentioning that, it's funny hearing different, vocabulary. So I'm in English language class, right? And I'm listening to the teacher dictate, right? And he's dictating and he's like, full line, fresh line, new paragraph. And I'm like, fresh line, what is this? Or he's saying something like full stop. And I was
going to say, did you have a full stop or did you have a period?
Full stop. Oh, that's a period. I see. You start to learn all this. It's like, it's amazing. It's cool. And sevens being crossed and this type of stuff. It sounds really like mediocre. But at that time, everything seems like, oh man, all these changes and studying. But it was a very early lesson. And when I'm talking at sixth form, I could not work my first year. So for me to get into sixth form, and not to digress too much, but for me to get into sixth form, one of the things that I had to do was get my Maltese certification, Maltese language certification, for me to be able to advance to go to sixth form. It was obligatory. So I had basically got here. I had 3 years to do that, basically, sort of, if you want to call it, to learn start writing. And I managed to do that. I was like over the moon. I was like, this is a huge success for me. And I look back and I say it is one of my biggest successes. And it's served me so well, because even here, if I'm getting interviewed on TV or anything like that, and I have to do it in Maltese, I can do it. And albeit people recognize that there is an accent. And I still make mistakes.
Canadian accent. Love it.
And again, looking at authenticity, like I have no problem nowadays being somewhere on TV, for instance, live, doing an interview or something, and I'll turn to the interviewer live and say, listen, I don't have this word in Maltese right now, so I'm not sure what this word is, right? But it's such a relief to be able to do that, because people relate with that and they go, this guy's real.
Yes.
Like he has his, challenges too, right?
Yeah.
So I got my Maltese, coming back to that, and what happened was, in that same year, they made the powers that be made Arabic compulsory.
Really?
Because we're so close to the Arab countries, that they felt it was something that might be needed in business and so on. And I'm like, you got to be kidding! This is like a slap in the face. Like now I have this
sorted. Come on.
I know exactly. That was my point. Like I just got sort of like how. Anyways, long story short, I couldn't work my first year at work phase because I didn't have it. I managed to get it the following year. And then from there, I worked as a student worker. I ended up, because all the cushy jobs had gone. So, working in government departments, the banks and all this, those cushy jobs have been gone at that time. So I ended up working in a clothes factory.
Okay.
Right. And again, wonderful lessons. Like my dad didn't want me to go to this clothes factory and work, because my dad had worked as a factory worker in Canada for 16 years. And he said, my son is not going to the factory. Right. But my mom was like, no, let him go. He'll learn, and she said, just go and give your 100%, do the best that you can do, which I did. And then from there, I went into banking, worked in banking for about 7 years, then moved into sales. With one of the top companies here on the island. They still are. Learned a ton there in 3 years. Then had an opportunity to move into another company that was much smaller, and I had much more say in it. And this is where sort of like the entrepreneurial spirit started to come out. And then from there, moved out completely on my own, opened some retail shops. In the meantime, was getting involved in network marketing, personal development. Closed those retail shops in like 2006 it was, and that was a really tough time. A lot of lessons there, humbleness in the sense of, closing the first shop that I opened was like, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs understand that it's like, I'm closing, this is my baby, right? Or whatever. And, it was successful. And now I'm not successful, and all the stuff that goes on in our heads. What are people going to think and people don't think, they don't care. For the most part, they're not thinking about, oh, look at Ken, he closed his shop. What happened there? The guy's a fit. These are just stuff that goes on in our head now that I realize that, but it was a tough time.
But there was also grief. There was also an element of grief in there because goodbye to your baby.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And then I was also involved in a promotional merchandise business, which I still do up until this day as well. But it's flipped now. It's like it used to be my predominant income. It's actually my side now. Right. I just leave it there. I'm actually just phasing that out slowly but surely, in the sense I'm just catering for clients who have come to me over the years and they come back, not actively. And in the meantime, like I said, I started to learn, about coaching, life coaching. I've got my NLP certification as a master practitioner as well. And I just continued on that. And then it's over the last couple of years that I've really gone full out into really serving in that industry of personal development. Cool. So that's sort of how I've gotten to the point now where that this is predominantly what I do most of the time. It's a very, very important part of my life on an everyday basis.
Thank you. Forgive me for having to mute. I don't know whether you could hear the train going past at that point, but
I did not. Not over my voice.
I think my dear little Yeti is very good at knocking out extraneous noise. Sometimes it also knocks me out at the same time.
Right.
So anyway, what I was going to ask you then was, so you're working with entrepreneurs, in frustrated entrepreneurs in particular, with the mindset issues. Now, what sort of things come up? Because I know from personal experience, business, you wanted to do really well, and you've got all the tips and tricks, you've got the systems and things in place, but things aren't happening. And if you haven't got the personal stuff underneath it sorted, you're never going to get there.
Absolutely.
So tell us how that works for you.
Well, for me, what that's absolutely crucial, in the sense that I think what happens to a lot of entrepreneurs. So over the years, from all the entrepreneurial events I've attended and listened to, and books and listening to videos and all this type of stuff, it's amazing how we're still at the point now. How many times do we hear about how important it is to take action, how important it is to take massive action? And we hear it. And I'm not denying that action, it isn't important for people to take action, without a doubt. Yet what I have discovered over the years is that there is a significant difference between taking action and taking inspired action. Yes. An absolute significant difference. There are lots of people very busy taking action, but they're very busy doing nothing. They're just going around, because they've been taught. Now, I'd like to let people off the hook that if this happens, if this sounds like you potentially, I like to let you off the hook, because this is what you've been taught. You've been taught that you need to be taking action all the time. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, it undermines your worthiness, your credibility, your, how much you really want it, how much you truly desire all of this, which goes hand in hand with another aspect that I believe entrepreneurs have been taught over and over and over again, is this thing about sacrifice, about suffering, about struggle, about stress. Essentially, most individuals, not just entrepreneurs, but just use entrepreneurs, have been told that, if you're going to become an entrepreneur, be prepared to sacrifice, be prepared to struggle, be prepared to suffer, be prepared to be stressed out.
It's hard work.
It's hard work. Now, I'm not going to take away the fact that there are going to be moments that are going to be challenging. Now, this is where the mindset, the personal development comes in. You see, if you've been programmed like that, just like we were talking about before, how we've been programmed to go through the schooling system in a certain way, so that we, same thing. If you've been programmed and you've heard over and over that, okay, as an entrepreneur, you're going to struggle. As an entrepreneur, you're not going to have enough time for anything but your business. And, you can forget your family for a while, and you can, on all of these things, and you believe it.
Yeah.
So this is the crux of everything. If you truly believe that, that is what it's going to be. I mean, life ultimately is a self-fulfilling prophecy. So ultimately, that is what it's going to be. And you can have that if you want that. This is why so many entrepreneurs, the minute things do sort of like keel out and they're sort of becoming easy, dare I use that word, easy, because things start to become birds, all of a sudden they're like, oh, just a second here. This isn't supposed to be easy. This is supposed to be difficult. This is supposed to be a sacrifice. And now they start going to look for a way to potentially sabotage themselves, to make it difficult, to make it stressful, and all of these things. One of my main messages to entrepreneurs is this: what if business could be fun? What if business could be inspirational? What if business could be impactful? What if it could be easy? What if it could be flowing? All of these things. And you start to believe that. The tide starts to turn. You see, the more you focus on the fact that it has to be stressful, whatever you're looking at, you will bring more of that to you. That means you will bring the people in your life who create things that are a sacrifice. You will bring people that are not fun. You will bring people that will make things difficult. Yeah. But if you shift that focus and you start to look in the opposite direction, you start to attract these people and circumstances and situations. What a lot of entrepreneurs don't really realize, and individuals, is that the way we are thinking, so ultimately the way we are thinking is having an effect on the results and the experiences that we are having. So what does that mean? Ultimately, is that your beliefs, which are tied into the way you're thinking, because you're thinking according to what your beliefs are, which is based potentially on past history, what you've learned, all of these things. It doesn't necessarily mean it's the truth.
So now, you've given whatever it was, isn't it?
Yeah. So and the thing is this, though, the way you're thinking and your beliefs, what it's having an effect on as well is the environment around you. So you can look at a number of years ago, we had, not too long, a couple of years ago, there was a whole thing about, there was a new road that was being built, a major road that was being built here. And apparently they had to, cut down some trees or whatever it was, or a lot of trees apparently were going to be, and we don't have a tremendous amount of forestry here. So, people start to, talk a lot and, and protest and all of this, which is wonderful. It's not about that's not about the issue. I get that. The thing is this, though, what happened to me during that time, which is really interesting, was when this was going on, and I don't like getting involved in all these things, but you hear bits and hits. But what happened to me at that point in time, I actually started to see trees where I never used to see them. I go, just a second, there are trees over here. Look, oh, and there are trees here too. And to me, that was a real cool metaphor for life as well. You can decide to look at life, look at where the trees are, or you can decide to look at where the trees are not. Yes. And according to what you decide you want to see or not, that's how your life is going to unfold. That is how your business is going to unfold. So if you want to, and again, to make it really clear as well, like, I am not saying that you're not going to go through your challenges. I think everybody goes through their challenge. I go through my challenges without a doubt. Yet what I think, for me anyways, is success, when it comes to success, is being able to go through your challenges, through, dare I say, sway through your shit. If you can do that joyfully, that's success. Yeah. Right? That's success, because as you're doing that and you're still joyful and going, okay, that just happened. Okay, so how, okay. And being aware, because everything starts from awareness, being aware to actually start looking at yourself and saying, okay, so how have I brought this on? consciously, unconsciously, and start create that awareness, say, how have I brought this on? So this just happened. It's not exactly the outcome I was looking for. However, what was my part in this?
Yeah. It's that
what was my
radical
part in this?
responsibility, isn't it?
Yeah. What's my part in this? Looking at it, being honest with yourself and saying, okay, this was my part in this. How can I shift that? And this is where I love to help people. They start to see and say, oh, I can, oh, geez, I didn't even realize that that has been my story for the last 20 years. My story for the last 20 years has been, you know, that it's been my mom's fault. It's been my dad's fault. It's my cousin's fault. It's my boss's fault. It's everybody else's fault. And I haven't taken the time to look at myself and say, okay, let's take some responsibility here. Let's be accountable here.
Who's the common denominator in all of this?
Yeah. Yeah. And this is the thing. People will, you know, move out of situations, if you like to say. So we could say out of situations, leave jobs, leave relationships, move to another country, right? You know, because I just can't take it anymore in this country. It's whatever, you know, there's too much of this going on, too much of that. What people tend to forget, individuals tend to forget sometimes, is that wherever they're going, they're taking themselves.
Yeah.
Right? They're taking themselves, they're taking their beliefs, they're taking the way they think and all of these things. So it's imperative, and this is where mindset, personal development, all this comes in. It's imperative to be able to take a step back, look at yourself and say, okay, how can I begin to shift this? And it can be done. It is not, you know, rocket science. There are ways, there are methods to take the steps to actually start to shift those results and those experiences.
And it takes that, as you said, that awareness that it doesn't have to carry on the way it is now. Just because in Scotland there's a phrase, it's I been, because it's I been doesn't mean I will be.
There you go.
So that's the
point.
There
you
go. One of our most recent speakers on Your Words Have Power talked about your past is not your future unless you let it. And that's the thing, isn't it? Because as you said, we can blame circumstances, we can blame family relationships, we can blame the countries or whatever. The point is when we're in victim mode, I can't do anything about it. It all happened to me.
Yeah.
And you feel powerless. But when you take that step to go, okay, what part of this, it's not all about me from the other side either, but what part of this can I take responsibility for? Because if I can, then I can do something about that bit at least.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that is one of the major beliefs that I believe can be shifted, and it is really important for things to begin to smoothen out and become easier, is understanding that it doesn't matter what is happening. It's always happening for your best interest, for your higher good, even though right now it may appear not to be. So right now, so it's sort of like the person who's living on the first floor and the person who's living on the 30th floor. You're leaving the first floor to go to work or wherever you're going, and you're going to take the normal route. And the guy on the 30th floor is saying, hey, Ken, listen, don't take your normal route today because there's a big backlog of traffic that way. Go the other way. And you're on the first floor going, what are you talking about? I can't see anything. There's nothing. I can't see that. Well, there's the person on the 30th floor has a completely different perspective to what you have. And this is where we tap into something much bigger than us that knows that everything that is happening to you and the way it's happening to you is for your best interest, is for your best interest. You might not see it now. You may realize it 5 years down the road. You may realize it 10 years. You may never realize it. You may never learn that lesson simply because you just have not gotten to the point where you're ready to look at it.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I know for a fact that from a personal experience, when my husband died, that was not a good place to be. Far from it. However, 13 years on, I can tell you he would not recognize me because I have grown so much as a result. I wouldn't be here in Australia for one thing, and neither would I be as an entrepreneur and done this and this and done some travel and done this, like if he'd still been alive. So
Yeah,
at the time, oh boy, was it poop alley.
absolutely. Yeah,
Now
absolutely.
back on it, I won't say it's the best
And
thing
this
that's
is,
ever happened, but it certainly is as a significant positive out of it.
yeah, absolutely. And you know, and coming from, you know, coming from a metaphysical level as well, you know, and let's go here a tiny bit, because it all, that's why everything is from the inside. Everything starts from the inside.
Mm-hmm.
And two things, you know, from a metaphysical level, that was the journey. That journey was laid out already. You met, you got married, you were going to do you agreed, you made an agreement before you actually got here.
Mm-hmm.
You made an agreement before you got here and said, okay, this is what we're going to do. This is what going to happen. This is what's going to happen. This is what we're going to teach each other.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens here, and this is why this work is so important, is that many times we're just looking at the physical aspect, and we're looking at, so even when it comes to a relationship that we say, you know, goes in different directions, or a lot of people say breaks up, you know, and we look at it as something really bad.
Mm-hmm.
It's not necessarily, you know, when we say, oh, this is sad, and not necessarily. At a metaphysical level, this agreement was made. This is what we're going to be in each other's lives for this amount of time. This is what we agreed to. This is how we're going to I'm going to push your buttons with these things. You're going to push my buttons with these things. Like, who are our biggest teachers in our lives? Look at that. The closest people in our lives are our kids. Like, you know, my daughter is one of the few people who knows what buttons to push with me.
Mm-hmm.
Thankfully, I've learned most of the time how to deal with it and how to. But these are the people who we are their biggest teachers, and they are our biggest teachers. And I think it's really important for people to recognize as well that, you know, say as entrepreneurs, as leaders in business, we are teaching all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And learning at the same time. So the way we are showing up, how we are treating our people in enterprises, you know, this one of the reasons I wanted to work with entrepreneurs is because I can work with an individual who is a leader, who then can have an effect on the rest of the organization. So if the leader has shifted the way he or she has begun to think in a way that is creating a whole different culture, now that person can have an effect on everybody below them. Because whether you like it as an entrepreneur, you know, whatever's happening at, you know, let's say the within the business at the bottom, if you let's say, whatever's happening there is only a symptom of what's happening up here, beginning with you. Yes. They're just symptoms. So, you know, what is the culture that you as an entrepreneur are creating within your business? Mm-hmm. Are you actually creating a culture that you want to create? And again, this, you know, takes a certain amount of awareness or having the willingness to say, okay, what are my values? Mm-hmm. What are my true values? Am I actually living those values? So in business,
do you find that business values and personal values are separate?
They intertwine.
Yeah.
They absolutely intertwine. Mm-hmm. So if I have a value of, I don't know, let's say honesty, let's use honesty, for mm-hmm. instance, and I think that's absolutely important. You know, as a business person, you know, when that opportunity arises to potentially do something that's not quite that honest, mm-hmm. are you actually living by your value, or are you compromising it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. You know, you say as an entrepreneur, you say, a very common one, you say that freedom is important to you. That's why you started your business, essentially freedom. Are you actually creating the freedom that you said you wanted to create? Or is your business taking up, 15, 16 hours of your life every single day?
Mm-hmm.
And you
How
also
did you
said that
actually
family
take
was
off over
important.
Christmas?
Pardon me?
How much time did you take off over Christmas? You know that 3
How much
weeks.
time?
I'm hypothetically asking.
Oh, yeah.
You set yourself a 3-week holiday. How much of that time did you actually stop from work?
Yeah. And that's actually sometimes can be, yeah, but that's actually sometimes can get a bit, I think, a bit confusing as well for entrepreneurs, is that they think that, taking those 2 weeks off or whatever it is. So a lot of them say, okay, yeah, I'm going to I take 2 weeks off in the year or whatever, and that's going to make up for the rest of the year. It's not exactly balanced.
And this is where your ratio comes in. Your
by 1 times 365 equals 42 comes in. I was going to remind exactly. You take an hour every day for yourself, whether that's a bit of quiet time. Sometimes it's a workout. Sometimes just at least that 1 hour a day for yourself. It's just for yourself. You do that every day. You've created 42 8-hour days. 42 8-hour days. But people think they're going to take work 16 hours a day and then take 2 weeks off. And during those 2 weeks, most of the time they're thinking about their business anyways.
Yes. Because
so again, looking at
stops doing something and therefore you feel anxious. I mean, what am I supposed to be doing? I'm working.
Yeah. Am I allowed not to be doing? And that's amazing, because that's one of the first things entrepreneurs need to do. I got to tell them, you got to stop. You got to stop. And they think that stopping is this horrible thing, because if they're going to stop, and again, this is where lack mindset versus abundant mindset, they think stopping, someone else is going to take a piece of the pie. There's enough pie for everybody. The pie is infinite. From an abundance standpoint, there's enough for everybody all the time. So you can't take a piece of the pie and you're not left with enough. You take abundance away from abundance, you're left with abundance.
Yeah. So,
and understanding you need to stop. And there are many different reasons why you need to stop, not just for the sake of stopping and for your health and for potentially for your relationships, to have time for your relationships and all that. But that's where inspiration comes.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean,
inspiration comes when you stop.
Most of good ideas come when you're in the shower.
That's it. In the shower, on the toilet.
You can't write it down.
I'm sure someone had a brilliant idea. They would be able to find a way to remember it. But sometimes it happens. Like it's so, yeah, but it's so vital. It's so vital. And this is the part where it comes, the hardworking part comes in, and those beliefs, right?
Yeah.
What if it didn't have to be hard? What if it could be, if using this and tapping into something much bigger than you was the way for you to move forward easily, effortlessly, joyfully, impactfully, and all of these things, and having even better results.
That's the thing, even better results.
Yeah, absolutely. I firmly believe that, if you come to a point in your life where you can have more joyful moments than unjoyful moments, then you're doing a pretty good job. And I think that's what it's all about, is being able to be joyful, whether you're in your business, whether you're having a conversation with the cashier at the supermarket, whether you're wherever you are, just being joyful in that particular moment. And like anything else, it takes practice, and it takes the willingness to want to actually have that.
Exactly. And I was going to go on to say that is also, from anybody's perspective, but particularly from an entrepreneur, is that you are always marketing, because people will be watching you. And if you have a meltdown in the supermarket, and then next time you're sitting you're on video and you're all sweetness and light, people in the supermarket are going to go, I've seen a different side of her, It's sort
of like, during Christmas time, if someone's wearing a Christmas hat and they're in the car, you don't really want to be caught picking your nose, do you?
It's back to that responsibility, because we are always on show. We are walking our talk. I mean, you know this yourself, Ken, that the number of times that people have said to me, oh, I've been watching you on your socials. And I'm going, really? Oh, yes, I watched you do this, and this. And I'm going, okay, no interaction. Oh, no, well, I like to sit back and watch. So you never know who's watching.
Yeah. Absolutely. You never know. And you never know. You could have someone who's been watching, for instance, on the socials, like you're saying, and then, 3 years down the road, they contact you and say, listen, I'm liking what you're doing or whatever. I'm interested in knowing more. Like it's yeah. And I think what's important to recognize as well, and something that you touched on now as well, Wendy, is that ultimately, though, and this is where the authenticity comes in, right? Is that, ultimately you're not doing what you're doing because other people are watching.
Yes.
You're doing it because that's who you are. Mm. So don't be wrong. Like if you were wearing a Santa's hat and you got caught picking your nose, like, so be it. And it's done. And it's like, hey, it happened. What can I say? Like it's just so you're doing it because you feel good about what you're doing.
Yeah.
Okay. So not to please anybody. And so it's always, you're doing it for because that's what you're aligned with your values. You're doing it for your values. Right.
Thank you for making
whether it's
putting that distinction.
Just to again, I understand where you were going. I get it that people are watching and that, but ultimately you are doing it because you feel good about it. And that's the key, is that whatever you are doing in your life, be it in your business, be it in your leisure time, be it with your family, whatever, is you want to feel good about it. Because you essentially, when you are feeling good, so with the way you're thinking is creating an emotion. Okay. And when you're creating a feeling good emotion, that is what you are transmitting to the universe. Mm-hmm. And you're telling the universe, I'm feeling good. And the universe is going to respond by saying, let me give you some more good things to feel about. Mm-hmm. And this is how the circumstances, situations, people we interact with start to appear that are perfectly aligned with your feeling good.
Yeah, exactly.
You feeling angry all the time will have the same effect. And now you're intertwining with angry people who are complaining all the time, circumstances that suck, that whatever, all of these things. So this is why this is so crucial that you are recognizing, okay, what am I doing with I'm feeling good and being joyful most of the time as much as possible.
Yeah. I'm picking up on that point. The feelings, that the thoughts are coming with our language. And of course, this is my geekiness at this point. And those, you touched on this earlier about the beliefs, and beliefs are things that we've said over and over and over and over and over and over again, what I call internal scripts. And we're drawing to a close at this point, Ken, and thank you very much for our conversation. One of the things that is really important for me is looking at those internal scripts, because as we said earlier on, there are situations happen that are neutral, and it's the thoughts, the feelings, the emotions, the meanings that we give those situations that then color how we remember them, how we talk about them, how we project them. And you were saying about the energy that we project out. Now, the reason I'm mentioning this is because I'm not sure whether you heard my origin story. When I was 2, I had an abandonment experience in hospital. And my parents weren't allowed to be in hospital with me when I was having surgery. And so my earliest memories of double doors closing, with me shouting and screaming on one side and my mother unable to come to me. And from a developmental perspective, this 2-year-old made the decision, well, nobody's listening to me. My voice doesn't matter. Everybody else's voice does matter. Now, bear in mind the age at this time it happened. This went on under the surface, totally unconsciously, for over 50 years. Mm-hmm. The flip side of it, that other people's voice mattered. Again, unconscious, but what did I do as a profession? Speech pathology. Those early scripts that we may not even be aware of can and do color life choices. So
Absolutely.
when you do that, and this is something that I'm absolutely certain that you do as part of your work, is what I call the archaeology. You go underneath, you dig down, and you find those unconscious scripts, and you ask the question, is that working for you now? Now you know about it. Now you've let it percolate to the surface. Is that still working for you? Now, for me, the other people's voices matter. Absolutely. Would I change that? No. I've impacted probably in the region of 5,000 individuals as a speech pathologist in my rather long time career. But the fact that I didn't stand up for myself in multiple situations in my personal life, I'm now going, you know what, my voice does matter. I'm getting out on stages. I'm getting in front of people. I'm interviewing wonderful people like you. So my question is, the long preamble, what are the internal scripts that are working for you right now? What can you share with us?
Internal scripts that work for me. That, I remind myself every day to be grateful for and appreciative for whatever I have in my life at that point. Not just to remind myself. One of the scripts that I use constantly, and I actually learned this from Esther Hicks, who I love listening to, and I think she's got wonderful stuff. And I actually adapted this. So she always talks about how things are always working out for me. And I remind myself of that every day. So even when things, to the point that, like, I actually did what she had, I have on my dashboard on the car, it reflects into, I have it printed out with mirror, so that it reflects into my windscreen, so that I actually see things are always working out for me. And it becomes unconscious, becomes an unconscious script. It's there. So sometimes I see it, sometimes I don't. In the nighttime, if light hits it, sometimes it appears and then it disappears. So I find it absolutely fantastic. And it's actually something I was considering, looking into creating these more of these, because there's so many that people know. But this thing of things are always working out for me, and I truly believe that. To me, that gives me a sense of relief constantly, in the sense that, things are always working out for me. And I can even look at my, although we're in the present, we want to be in the present, but I can look at my history and say, yeah, things always, even during challenging times, difficult, things were always worked out. They always work out. And the more belief you have of that, of things are always working out for me, things are always working out for me, things will always work out for you. Right. So that's something really, really, really I use a lot. Without a doubt, that the fact that I remind myself that, and I think this is important too, to remind others. So when I sit down with people, I think we, for the most part, most people do not hear enough of the fact that, I can sit down with someone and look at them in the eye. And I like to do this to myself as well. But I can look someone in the eye and say, listen, you know what, Wendy, you are beautiful as you are. There is nothing to fix. You're perfect exactly the way you are. You are exactly where you are meant to be. And you're beautiful. And we remind ourselves of this. We can say this to ourselves. And I think it is important to tell others. I can't tell you the number of times I've sat down with clients where towards the end of this, I remind them this and I tell them. And unfortunately, or let's say unfortunately, many of them have not heard it in a long time. People don't feel heard. People don't feel like they have a voice. People feel like they don't, what they're doing, or the voice that they believe they might have is not significant enough. I can remember even for myself for many years. I mean, like I said, I've been delving in personal development one way or another for 20 years, but it was only towards the end of 2019 where I said, you know what? I think I'm ready to get the word out there. Right? After, right? Just, all those years, just, oh, should I not? Could I, is what I have to say, significant or not significant? Can it happen? And then it's just, you just come to a point where, you know what? It is what it is. This is what I believe. Let's get it out there, right? So I think these scripts of understanding, saying, I'm beautiful the way I am, as I am. Will everybody accept the way I am? No, but that's okay. And again, that's getting comfortable with yourself, and that takes some practice, some getting used to. I mean, I was the guy. I remember many years ago, I was the guy who wanted to keep the peace, make everybody happy. Like, I just want, and then I was the guy who was the most miserable attempting to do that until I realized I can't do this. I can't make everybody happy. It's not my job to make everybody happy.
Take the S off your chest. That's
it. So I think if there were some scripts, these would be it. And reminding yourself every day to appreciate. Appreciate, I don't know, that you have a roof over your head. Appreciate that you have food in the fridge. Appreciate that you had a bed to sleep on. Appreciate that you had a pillow. Appreciate that you have a bathroom available to you. If you have all of these, and if you don't have all of these things, then appreciate whatever you do have. And the reason being is appreciation is a way to elevate your frequency very quickly, to feel good.
Yes.
So you create more of it.
And even if you do have an outside dunny, to use the vernacular here.
Yeah.
The fact that you don't have to do it under a bush is rather helpful.
That's it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Ken. As always, I love having a conversation with you, and we could talk the night away. I know it's not nighttime for you, but it is here. So thank you so much. In terms of how do people find you? Because one thing we haven't touched on, we said that you're a coach that works with frustrated entrepreneurs. Now, I'm going to put all the information about you in our show notes, but in the 30 words or less, if you can remember it, define what you do for us, how people can grab hold of you.
So I help frustrated entrepreneurs to adapt and pivot. Using my proprietary ARC method, they're able to have more time freedom guaranteed.
Oh, isn't that what we're all after? Thank you.
Really and truly.
Oh, yeah.
Freedom is right up there, huh? Freedom is up there.
Yeah. And okay, we'll finish this here. Thank you so much, Ken. Really enjoyed talking with you, sir.
My absolute pleasure. My absolute pleasure, Wendy.
Thank you. Bye-bye for now.